ITV Lunchtime News.
Where is he? Every police force in the country hunting the man who stabbed a young mum in Bradford. The murder happened on Saturday afternoon as she pushed her baby in a pram. Her child was not harmed, but police say she knew her attacker, Habiba Masum.
She was very, very innocent person, a smile on her face. You know, you can't tell that she's going to die.
Also ahead, inches from tragedy, the family who managed to miss being hit by a crane crashing into their house. Darkness in daylight, it's eyes to the North American skies for today's total solar eclipse there and what we might see here. And the man who ran Africa, the hardest easers, route, reasons and celebrations.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Nina Hussain.
Good afternoon. Every police force in the country is on alert to try to find a man who stabbed a young mother while she was pushing a pram in Bradford. The attack happened on Saturday afternoon in the city centre. She later died in hospital. Her baby was not harmed. The 27-year-old victim has yet to be formally identified. A knife was recovered from the scene of the murder, but the man fled. Police are looking for a 25-year-old suspect named as Habiba Masum, who is from Oldham, but is said to have links to Burnley and to Chester. Carrie Davis has the latest.
Bright flowers often follow a dark day. A young mother was stabbed to death as she pushed her baby in a pram in the middle of the afternoon. The horror of what happened here on Saturday has triggered an emotional response.
It's a whole community. It's a shock. And to know that it's happening in broad daylight and bless, no one could have helped that situation and that, you know, she's gone.
Understood to be 27 years old, she hasn't been formally identified, but police say she knew her alleged killer. A man who didn't care who saw his crime. It happened on a busy road in the Westgate area of Bradford city centre. The owner of a nearby shop went to help along with a passing doctor, but the victim died in hospital.
I heard screaming. I was inside. I ran down, and then the doctor came privately, and he said that he's a doctor. So him and me and there was some other guy, we tried to rescue her, but she was already gone, I think.
Detectives are desperately hunting 25-year-old Habiba Masum from the Oldham area. They also released a CCTV image of him and gave this warning for those who may encounter him. A knife was recovered from the scene of the murder, but we cannot say if Habiba Masum is armed, and I would urge anyone who does see him not to approach him, but to call 999 immediately. Police are urging anyone with information that might help track Masum down to get in touch. For now, the manhunt goes on. Carrie Davis, ITV News.
Our reporter Katie Oscroft joins me now from the scene. What more can you tell us this lunchtime about this complex investigation to find this suspect?
Well, little sign here today of the horrific events of Saturday. The police cordon has been taken down now and some normality is beginning to resume in this very busy part of Bradford. But as you say, a huge manhunt is underway involving all police forces across the country for Habiba Masum. And whilst the police did find a knife here at the scene of the murder, they have no idea whether he is still armed. So to reiterate, that message is if you see him to stay away and simply to contact the police immediately. Now, the aftermath of what happened here may not be visible, but people here are in great shock. It's coming towards the end of Ramadan. Eid is just around the corner, and on Saturday afternoon many people were out shopping for that celebration, and then they returned home to hear this: the murder of a young woman who hasn't been named yet by the police, a baby of just a few months old left behind. People are bewildered and they're very concerned about the level of violence playing out on their streets.
Katie Oscroft, thank you very much. Thank you. Israel's military says it has withdrawn troops from Khan Yunis in southern Gaza months after it began its offensive. A significant force remains in other areas of the Strip, and officials say their war continues. Displaced Palestinians have been returning to the area, but such is the destruction, many have struggled to locate their homes in the rubble. Another investigation is underway into Boeing after a plane engine cover fell off during takeoff on a flight in America. The 737 did land safely, but it's the second problem this week on a Southwest airline flight after reports of an engine fire on Thursday. And the UN's atomic watchdog has warned there is a heightened risk of a major nuclear accident after Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia power plant was hit by a new drone attack. Russia has blamed Ukraine for the attack, which injured 3 people, but Ukraine has denied any involvement. Staying with Ukraine, and the Foreign Secretary Lord Cameron is expected to warn America that it's risking the West's security by holding up aid to the war-torn country. He's due for talks with the Republican Speaker. The UN has pledged £2.5 billion in funding for Kyiv, and the EU has offered £43 billion. Now it's understood Lord Cameron will encourage America to follow suit. Our political reporter Jasmine Cameron-Shaleshi is in Westminster. Jasmine, the UK urging the US to unblock its funding.
Yeah, so this is a pretty significant intervention by the Foreign Secretary. The UK has already this year pledged an additional around £2.5 billion in additional aid to Ukraine. And President Biden's bill, which would have included foreign aid to Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, and amounts to around $95 billion, is currently being held up by the House of Representatives. Republicans say they're not going to support it without significant concessions on things like border security. Now, the Foreign Secretary is in the US this week, where he's expected to meet with the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and he'll essentially argue that all these delays are putting the security of the West at risk. And this sentiment was really echoed by ministers I spoke to this morning.
What would be really helpful would be for the US Senate to clear the aid package to Ukraine, which is tied up with an aid package to Israel, so that we can get that additional funds over to help Ukraine. It's important that we get that over as quickly as possible, but I don't think I'm going to say anything further about the American process, so that's for them to go through.
Now, the UK is really trying to tread this fine line between putting that pressure on the US, but also not wanting to get too drawn into their domestic politics. And I think all of this is really indicative of growing worry among officials in the UK at possible fatigue among some of our allies. And so I think we can expect in the coming weeks and months to have officials such as the Foreign Secretary really speaking out and reiterating the need to continue to support Ukraine as this conflict continues.
Jasmine, thank you very much. Thank you. A radio show hosted by the shadow Foreign Secretary David Lammy on LBC is being investigated by Ofcom following complaints. The media watchdog said it was looking into whether the programme on March the 29th broke our rules on politicians acting as news presenters. Lammy has hosted a show on the radio station since 2022, following appearances standing in for other presenters. Last month, episodes of GB News presented by Tory MPs were found to have breached the rules. Still ahead, counting down to the eclipse, we're live in America with excitement building for this celestial event. And we catch up with the self-styled hardest geezer after his Mammoth Marathon Challenge. First, how much do you pay for a little luxury in your life? Not enough, say some nail technicians, and they're from today, they're putting prices up. The company behind the movement, the Nail Tech Org, claims some self-employed workers are only earning around £7 an hour once their costs are deducted, well below the minimum wage. With more, here's Sally Biddle.
In the pink, the most popular colour choice for nails in the UK. And from today, getting a manicure will cost you more. 5,000 nail technicians and salons across the country are taking part in a collective price increase, a move that's welcomed by the industry.
Everyone's got that fear that they're going to be the most expensive, whereas if we all do it together, it becomes the new norm and the new prices, which is how it should be.
Business costs have ramped up over the past few years, with electricity, rent and products all increasing. The charge for a manicure or pedicure has not kept pace.
I think that it's just about time that we increased our prices for nails, because they haven't increased over, in the 15 years I've been in the industry, but the cost of the products has, and some being around 50% mark just even in this past year. So I think the Nail Tech Org has given us the tools to figure out what our prices are, and I think it's a really positive move.
One of the most pressing issues is pay. Nail Tech Org worked out that after costs, staff are earning around £7 an hour, way below the minimum living wage of £11.44 an hour. The increase in price should help bridge the gap. For the consumer, it means the average manicure cost of £38 could increase by £5 to £10. So whether it's a little treat, a pick-me-up or part of a bigger beauty regime, getting your nails done just got more expensive. Sally Biddle, ITV News.
Next, the footage showing just how close to danger a family was in Wigan after a crane crashed into their house. It happened on Saturday afternoon, but a doorbell camera has captured the moments before the accident when a young girl runs away and shows the damage inside the house, revealing the family could have been inches away from a tragedy. Our North of England reporter Amy Welsh is there.
Well, it really was a lucky escape for this family after a crane came crashing through the front of their home in Atherton near Wigan on Saturday morning. You can clearly see the damage left behind, a huge gaping hole in the front of the property and damage to the brickwork and to the roof. Now, all of this was captured on Ring doorbell footage, which shows a young child playing on their bike in the front garden. Now, that child runs into the house, and just seconds later, a huge metal container swings into shot and crashes into the front of the property. Now, nobody was in that front bedroom at the time, and miraculously, nobody was injured during this incident. Now, we understand the family have been taken to temporary accommodation, but clearly this will have been a terrifying ordeal for all involved, and questions will clearly be being asked over what caused this to happen in the first place. Now, we understand that the lorry was on Flapper Fold Lane here in Atherton, and that it was trying to lift a metal container from a nearby field. Now, there were strong winds in the northwest of England on Saturday due to Storm Kathleen, and that will inevitably be one line of the police investigation. In the meantime, work is being done to assess just how badly damaged this property is, and it will be some time before the family are able to return home.
Amy Welsh there. In just over 6 hours' time, millions of people from Mexico across America to the east coast of Canada will be able to witness one of the real wonders of the world and beyond, a total eclipse of the sun. Cue eerie silences, minutes of darkness in daylight, eclipse parties and eclipse tourists paying a pretty penny to witness the spectacle for themselves through some very special glasses. In a moment, we'll look at what they might see here. First, let's go live to America and join our US correspondent Dan Rivers, who has bagged a prime spot. Dan, I can't begin to imagine how excited people are there.
Yeah, there's a real buzz here in Indianapolis, in Indiana, where we are in the Midwest, which is in the so-called path of totality, among the places that will experience this incredible phenomenon when the moon moves in front of the sun for a few minutes completely blacking out the sun. We'll be able to see, hopefully, the corona, the rays of the sun visible around the silhouette of the moon. So a really spectacular celestial phenomena in treat, hopefully, if the skies stay as clear as they are here. This will all begin way out in the Pacific in just over 6 hours' time in the island nations of Kiribati. The track of totality will then move across Mexico into Texas and across the Midwest up into Canada and Newfoundland. Now, the path of totality, where there will be a total eclipse, like the place we are now, is 115 miles wide. But the effect of a partial eclipse will actually cover the whole of the United States. So everyone in the US will get some sort of effect from this. The further you are from this centre line, as it were, the lesser the effect. But it will be a once-in-a-generation opportunity, really, and people have come from all over the world to places like Indianapolis to try and get a view. Hopefully the weather stays clear. If it's not, well, they'll have to wait 129 years in this city for it to happen again.
You lucky thing, Dan Rivers, have a great experience. Well, the phrase of the day seems to be what Dan mentioned there, the path of totality. For what that means and why it makes this event so very special, I'm joined by Karen Applin, Professor of Space Science and Technology at the University of Bristol. Thanks very much for talking to us. Take us through the path of totality. Is that what makes this such an experience this time round?
Yeah, if you're in the totality region, it's very exciting. So the sun's disk completely obscures the suns and it gets dark. And as we were hearing, you can see there's solar corona and birds stop singing and you can see the stars and there's all sorts of weird things go on. It feels cool. You may feel a wind in your face. So that's the path of totality, but that's a relatively narrow region. What we also see is a very wide region of partial eclipse, which is where the sun is partially obscured by the moon. And over the UK this evening, we won't see a total eclipse, but we will see a partial eclipse. And some places, particularly in the north and west of the UK and also in the Republic of Ireland, we'll see a partial eclipse. So if you're in Scotland or in Ireland in particular, it would be really good to go out and see what you can see this evening at about 7:45 to 8.
And Karen, from a scientist's point of view, what do you learn when these eclipses happens? What kind of research goes into them when they happen and also after they happen?
There are a few things eclipses are useful for finding out about certain things. I've personally been involved with some work measuring the weather changes from eclipses, which are quite, as well as just being interesting in the sense of it gets colder and darker. They're useful for predicting testing things like weather forecast models, because one of the things about an eclipse is you know exactly when it's going to happen and where it's going to happen. And in weather, that's quite an unusual occurrence. And so it allows you a good opportunity to test certain effects, and particularly with respect to weather modelling. There's also a few things you can do with the solar corona, because the sun's disk is blocked. That means you can see the emissions from the sun, the corona around the sides of the sun that they wouldn't normally be able to see because the sun is too bright. It just outshines those. So nowadays we have satellites and they can look at the sun quite easily, but particularly before the space age, the eclipses were really important for looking at sort of astronomical phenomena. And famously in the past as well, an eclipse was used to confirm one of Einstein's theories about 100 years ago. So they have all sorts of uses.
Professor Applin, well, enjoy the experience today. Great memories of 1999. Thank you very much for talking to us today. Thank you. And to find out the best time and place to see a partial eclipse that Karen was talking about there here in the UK, head to our website. That's at itv.com/news. For the first time, French soldiers have been taking part in the British changing of the guard ceremony to mark the 120th anniversary of the Entente Cordiale. The Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh witnessed the event representing the King while he continues his cancer treatment. The series of agreements in 1904 settled former disputes and significantly improved relations between the UK and France. Finally, this lunchtime, the British marathon man who has run the length of Africa. Russ Cook is nicknamed the hardest geezer, and it's easy to see why. He's done 19 million steps through 16 countries, from South Africa's most southerly point last April along the west coast and up to the continent's most northerly point in Tunisia. He's now ready for a rest and a cocktail. Jonathan Swain was at the finish line in Tunisia yesterday and caught up with him this morning.
Well, this is the beautiful location on the North African coast. This is the finish line for the hardest geezer's epic challenge throughout Africa. He ran through 16 countries, started off in South Africa almost a year ago, taking the route up the west coast, finishing here in Tunisia yesterday afternoon. He's gone viral around the world. Millions of people are looking at his videos. He had hundreds of people also joining him on the final leg through Tunisia yesterday. I'm pleased to say that despite partying hard and despite a year-long challenge, well done to you, morning to you. Good to see you again.
Yeah.
How are you feeling today, Russ?
Yeah, pretty good. A little bit tired, a little bit hungover, but we soldier on through there.
And you've got such a lot of support, even supporters coming out here to see you this morning.
Honestly, bananas, man. I can't believe it. Yeah, incredible.
And anything hurting at all?
Honestly, right now I think I'm still pumped full of adrenaline, so I think I'm all good. But maybe once I lie down a bit more, we'll start seeing what the real damage is.
Incredible atmosphere yesterday for you. What did you prefer, sort of running alone or with the hundreds of people yesterday?
I don't think you can beat moments like yesterday, man. You know, like it's just incredible how many people came out to support for the last marathon. The energy was insane. Vibes were off the chart. So yeah, I mean, it was just top stuff.
And you go down we can confirm you're the British guy to complete the whole length.
Yeah.
There's a Danish guy that's claiming something different.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on that? Yeah.
I'm not bothered, man. Like, you know, people say things all the time. It's just it is what it is.
You've done your bit, haven't you?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You saw your girlfriend, all your family. It's the first time you saw them in about a year, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it's been about 14 months since I've seen everyone. So, yeah, all a bit of a whirlwind at the moment, but hopefully, you know, things have settled down a little bit, then we'll get to spend some time with each other.
Fantastic. Russ, the hardest geezer. Fantastic stuff. Well done, fella.
Appreciate it.
Certainly lives up to his name. We're going to see a lot more of him, I think, in future, aren't we?
Hopefully.
Jonathan Swain talking to Russ Cook there. That's it this lunchtime. Lucrezia will be here with the evening news at 6:30 from me. Bye-bye.